Il senso religioso di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
Dieci racconti di solidarietà e aiuto concreto. Storie ricche d'amore, riscatto, coraggio e cura. Storie di persone che donano e che ispirano a costruire una società inclusiva. Una mano a chi sostiene. Storie.
Il senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale, non è un'idea, innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire, non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli, perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
Dieci racconti di solidarietà e aiuto concreto. Storie ricche d'amore, riscatto, coraggio e cura. Storie di persone che donano e che ispirano a costruire una società inclusiva. Una mano a chi sostiene. Storie.
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale, non è un'idea, innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire, non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più componente più vasto che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Buonasera, allora benvenuti a questa nuova.
Good evening and welcome to this meeting on the topic, is this the Europe of the countries or the Europe of the regions? To start our session, I would like first and foremost to leave the floor to the President of the Marche region, Francesco Acquaroli, who unfortunately couldn't be with us in person, but who sent us a short video because he is actually in Ascoli Piceno on the occasion of the funeral of Carlo Mazzone, the former soccer trainer. So I'd like to listen to Francesco Acquaroli, and then we're going to address the topics that he will raise. Please, let us watch the video by Francesco Acquaroli. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to thank and greet the organizers and the community of the Rimini meeting, as well as the representatives and the institutions present at the meeting. I was supposed to participate as well in person. Unfortunately, Carlo Mazzoni passed away, and I am participating in his funerals, and I cannot therefore be with you. The topic you're going to discuss is very important and very interesting as well. It is a topic that basically sees the regions and the countries, and the focus is on the need to guarantee growth within the framework of the collaboration between these two groups, remaining competitive and being able to meet the challenges of the future. I assume that this topic will be pivotal also in the future, first and foremost in view of future reforms, as well as in view of the need to guarantee that Europe has is based on a framework and on a setup that makes it possible for it to be competitive and to remain faithful to its values, democracy, and also faithful to the legacy that comes from our history, so that we can be up to our great past. As I cannot be present in person, I'm not going to delve any further on these topics, but I wish you fruitful proceedings for this event, and I hope I will soon have the chance to see you again to deal with you with very, very interesting topics, and once again to establish a fruitful institutional and cultural collaboration that can be useful for the future of our country. Thanks a lot on behalf of all of us to President Acquaroli. He frequently comes to participate in the Rimini meeting. He's a friend of the Rimini meeting, and he thought it appropriate to open the discussion that we would like to establish with you this afternoon. This dialogue will pertain precisely the relationship between Europe and the regions, the Europe of the states and the Europe of the regions. We have together with us this evening 3 outstanding speakers, and they are outstanding precisely due to their responsibilities in the regions. On my left, I have Donatella Tesei, who is the president of the Umbria region. Thank you very much for participating, Ms. Tesei. Then we have Mario Tonina, Councillor for Town Planning, the Environmental Cooperation, and Deputy President of the Autonomous Province of Trento, and Sergio Migliobini, Councillor Regional for Productive Activities in the Friuli Venezia Giulia region. Actually, the actual denomination is Friuli Venezia Giulia, not only Friuli. As participants, habitual participants in the Rimini meeting know, the meeting has 2 aspects which are an integral part of its dimension, the regional and the European one. Ever since its establishment, the Rimini meeting has always tried to develop a core idea, which basically starts from the fact that our republic has 2 great development trajectories. This was clear ever since the beginning of our constitution. Starting from 1946, we knew that we would have had to rely on regions, because regions are basically the only new institutional novelty of our republic. Before fascism, we had the state, we had provinces and municipalities. The very first institutional novelty were regions, and there was a great challenge. And it was basically, it had to deal with the fact that we wanted to enhance differences, peculiarities, histories, capacities, as well as the supranational trajectory. So the idea that Italy could participate in international organizations starting from the European ones. So basically our republic had these 2 trajectories, the internal one and the external one, relying on its relationship with the world. A major Nobel Prize winner for literature in 2016, Bob Dylan, said that when the wind of change shakes, one needs to have deep roots, and that was the idea. We wanted to root the republic in its peculiarities in order to be able to branch out to the world, into the world. So these 2 directions are currently undergoing a difficult stage. And because of this, precisely because of this, we wanted to adopt this point of view. So Europe is formally an organization of states. We have ministers and former ministers. We have former Minister Bonetti here with us. The ministers participate in the setting up of the EU institutions, for example, the Council of Europe. So Europe is born as an organization of states. That if you look at the themes, the topics it deals with, like, for example, the environment or agriculture and so on, I mean, it deals with major issues. And these are issues, these are topics which are deeply rooted in the territory. So they need to, in a way, be addressed at a local, at a regional level as well. And that's why this evening we would like to find out how we see Europe from the regions, from the territory. I would like to start our debate starting from the situation of the regions. What's the condition in which regions currently find themselves in? So regions were set up with this great perspective. Regions were first conceived in order to have 20 new kind of gym halls in which a new political elite could be trained. Regions aimed at being a context in which a new form of public activity, of political activity, could be done, and that was a major challenge. The idea was to be open to regionalism. And how far have we progressed? What are the difficulties that regions face, and what are the positive aspects? Thank you very much. I would like to greet you. I am very happy to participate in the Rimini meeting. This is not the first year that I come. I've been attending the Rimini meeting for some years now, and this year I'm very, very happy because Umbria has its own stand, and it's then close to the exhibition of Alberto Burri, another extraordinary artist who was born in Umbria, and there is a permanent exhibition in Città di Castello. Plus, you made reference to Bob Dylan, the Nobel Prize winner, and this year in Umbria, on the occasion of the 50-year anniversary of Umbria Jazz, of the Umbria Jazz event, Bob Dylan was our guest. So actually, it was nice to hear about Bob Dylan again. So this, the topic of regionalism is very important. Regions all aim at protecting their territories, and at the same time they aim at supporting economic development. That's fundamental to contribute to the development of the country and of Europe. The two things go together. They go hand in hand. There is a body, in other words, the so-called Conference of the Regions. It's a body within which regions collaborate, and within which an agreement is demanded from the regions on the topics discussed within the government. A very interesting and important thing that emerges from that body is that in spite of the fact that we are all diverse, at the end of the day, there is a common agreement, there is a shared agreement of the topics that is being discussed. And that basically testifies to the loyal relationship of institutional collaboration that has to be there between region and state. We, for example, witnessed and are still witnessing political change, for example, at the level of the central government. For example, I was elected at the end of 2019, but I had to deal with a number of different governments. However, the relationship between the regions and that spirit of loyal, faithful collaboration and the need to find an agreement, to find consensus, are important. This sometimes requires also to sacrifice more regional or local interests to the advantage of more general interests. So this is an important aspect, which shows that regions want to work for the good of their communities, and they are all aware. I mean, all the presidents, all the regional presidents that I collaborate, even if we share different points of view, at the end of the day, we always find an agreement. All the regional presidents work because they know that all the things that we do has to go to the advantage of the country as a as a system, as a whole system. And we're all part of that system. And in turn, this system is then transposed to Europe. You know that regions receive important resources, for example, the structural funds. The new programming period is now about to start, the programming period between 2021 and 2027. And therefore, regions are called upon to manage resources for their programming activities, which concerns important topics like, for example, regional development, inclusion, and so on. I mean, these are topics that have a direct impact on people's lives. So we are talking about different situations which are, however, deeply interconnected. And plus, there's an aspect that is particularly dear to me. The Umbria region is part of the Committee of the Regions in Brussels. The Umbria region participates in this Committee of the Regions. It is an advisory committee. Within the Committee of the Regions, opinions are expressed, but we have no capacity of impacting directly on the European Commission. I believe in that respect we should make a step forward. The role of the regions, precisely because it is certified by Europe in the form of the Committee of the Regions. Precisely because of this, the Committee of the Region should, in my view, have more powers. We express opinions, but these opinions are not binding, and they are opinions on subjects that we know very well, and because of this we might be of great help on many aspects that are dealt with in Europe. Aspects which are the subject of decision-making and of the European legislative activity. And our role in this respect is not so effective because we are only entitled towards having an advisory approach. In this respect, I believe that we should actually have our voice heard, better heard, in order to give a better point of view to the actions that we need to adopt. I believe this would be more important. We will get back to these aspects. Thank you very much for this. I would actually talk about many people actually wonder what the role of the regions in economic development is and what difference can regions make, because we are all involved on this. First of all, good evening, everybody. I'm really very, very happy to see so many people, especially on these very hot days. I am also actually very much connected with the Rimini meeting. The Friuli Venezia Giulia region has also its own corner at the Rimini meeting, and this has been the case for 6 years now. I would like also to greet my co-guests. Actually, we believe that the importance of the regions lies in their ability to quickly, swiftly, and tangibly act in the field of productive activities. So for businesses, for households, and also for time. And this is something that we tried during the pandemic. For example, the Friuli Venezia Giulia region is a region with a special statute. We celebrated this year of this special condition this year, and as such we can legislate on certain aspects, and we also have some resources more that we can keep thanks to our excise duties. We are also we're going through major changes. We've had the pandemic, we've gone through the pandemic, and there's a war in the Ukraine, and these two events have kind of redefined the political and economic balance worldwide. A process of change has just started, in my view, and this process will lead to a rebalancing of weights. So, for example, almost all regions have asked for this differentiated form of autonomy. I believe it is positive. We're not opposing regions with a special statute to regions with an ordinary statute. Here we are, in my view, exploiting the potential that the regions have on the territory. And I believe that no one better than a governor knows the needs of his or her own people, entrepreneurs, individuals, and so on. So I think we should exploit them. I think it is Article 116 of the Italian Constitution that allows us to act in this respect. The procedures are not easy at all. We've been working on the definition of the rules for some time now. It's not so much about the competencies of autonomy, but ultimately everything has to deal with the allotment of resources and on the decision of the amount of money that will have to go to essential basic performances for these services. I am part of the team of Massimiliano Federiga, the governor of Friuli Venezia Giulia region and the president of the Conference of the Regions. And I have to say that between the regions, we have collaboration. Of course, regions have different points of view, but at the end of the day, we always find an agreement because we have one ultimate and single objective, which is the good of our citizens. I am in favor of autonomy. If we managed to make sure that Italian regions become more autonomous, that they are stronger and have better decision-making powers, I think we would be better able to more swiftly meet our citizens' needs. It has often happened to us that, as regions, that we had to deal with immediate needs, and then that we couldn't find a fast solution because of red tape at a governmental stage. That has happened on a number of fields, for example, health or the environment. And then also regions like ours with a special statute should start modifying something. We pay our own health with regional budgets. The paradox here is that we cannot set our own rules. You have to be subject to the national rules. But there's something that that should be changed. Another example applies to education. So autonomy for the management of schools, of education. So this is at the right moment, and now it's up to us to kind of seize the day and defeat those who want to convince us of the fact that autonomy means increasing the level of friction between regions. Okay, I would remain on this, on the fact that this is the right and decisive moment in which the future of autonomy is at stake. The province of Trento is one of the most striking examples of this idea that there should be a regionalism that goes at different speed, a different type regionalism. So there are people who basically say that favoring regionalism means breaking a bond of unity. For those who think that this is the case, how can we counter their objectives? What evidence and example can you bring to us to counter their objectives? Also, on my part, thank you very much. I would like to greet everybody and congratulations to the organizers. Trentino has been participating in this session also with our own stand. And that is also because we believe that these moments of exchange of views will be significant, and the same will happen this year as well, starting from the topics that we are dealing with. The Autonomous Province of Trento has, for years, played a role in its territory, following the statement by De Gasperi and Gruber in 1946, allowing us to have two autonomous provinces, Trento and Bozen. I believe that in these years we have shown that this is the right way to go. We well interpreted it and couldn't have been otherwise, because forms of self-governance have to place first and foremost the citizens of a territory in the conditions that they feel protagonists through the people, through the administrators who are elected every 5 years and who have to well interpret this role. We have actually seen that there are colleagues who are in favor of this differentiated autonomy. This will certainly enable other regions as well to develop forms of self-government with competencies that need to be guaranteed and which are very, very important. It is only territories, it is only administrators who know their local realities can indeed make the difference. With reference to a number of topics for which we're not competent because they are state responsibility, we hope that if the process that this government started in the field of differentiated autonomy, we hope that if this process is finalized, provinces and regions can be granted other competencies. And I'm referring to issues related to the environment. With reference to these topics, citizens complain about, they raise complaints towards us as well. And sometimes we cannot do anything. And I'm referring, for example, to the management of big carnivores. We know that mountain areas have major problems in this respect. So going in this direction and enabling the experiences that autonomous regions and provinces have granted over the years, it's enough to check and see what has been done and what type of economic development was granted within those territories. The responsibility there is greater. It's much greater. Everybody feels that they can actually contribute to their own territories so that there are right repercussions, so that any citizen can be a protagonist. Conversely, if certain competencies are dealt with centrally by the state, we then see that there are lots of difficulties. And I believe that the time has come today for these difficulties to be overcome. This is my contribution, the contribution to this that I would like to share with you, to tell you that basically I believe that this is the right way to go, because this will correspond to more responsibility so that a region can grow further. Thank you very much. It seems to me that from your answers, a major topic has emerged, which refers to the promotion of responsibility of the close link between citizens and institutions. The higher you go in public institutions, the more you risk to lose. So going back to the topic of our meeting, and the second topic is Europe. Is Europe helping in actually taking on this responsibility, or is Europe another form of centralization, a supraordinate form of centralization? The experience of being part of the Committee of the Region, the president of the Umbria region said that actually this advisory role can be better improved, can be more improved. But however, in general, with regards to the relationship with Europe, is it positive? Does this increase responsibilities, or is it a form of conditioning in exercising our own functions? What kind of evaluation do we give to this relationship? So the topic that I've raised before is, in my view, particularly relevant. Because if we are asked to participate, then we need to be given the chance also to have a say, because Europe's choices have direct repercussions on individual citizens through the state and through regions in particular. I'm thinking about, for example, two topics. One is the new European programming period. We have resources destined to regions for economic development and for other topics. But they indicate guidelines, and we need to follow these guidelines to reach certain objectives. And then there's the issue of the NRRP. That's yet another important topic. The NRRP is Europe's answer to the pandemic. A vast majority of the resources are loans, others are grants, and the NRRP sets the so-called missions. So the Italian state has ratified this agreement, and this then has direct impact on regions. In this specific case, in the case of the NRRP, the role as protagonists of the regions is not seen, because everything is centralized. So first it is the central government which manages funds. Regions are implementing bodies only for a limited part of these funds, but regions did not participate in the decisions, and actually in the decision concerning the final use of resources. And then parts of the projects, a part of the projects are for local governments, so the municipalities basically. And this is something that we need to be very careful with. We, within the Conference of the Regions, have raised this issue frequently. Then we've had several governments, and actually we're running short of time. And now we're even talking about remodulation of some resources within NRRP, because they appear to be incompatible to reach the objectives of 2026, where, I mean, the deadline by which works will have to be built and finalized. Italy is actually characterized by the fact that there are many municipalities, many individual local bodies. So having these direct funds and participating in the calls of the NRRP as municipalities doesn't mean that this is done, because not all municipalities have the capacities to intercept resources, draft projects, and actually implement the projects by restricted deadlines. This is a problem in terms of implementation. So had we had the chance to in a way, pursue the objectives, the missions of the NRRP, for example, greener Europe or health, well, then probably we could have had the region coordinating the work of municipalities, and if this had been possible, we could have made a better work, and we would have made everybody in a position to, in a way, draft projects and implement the objectives of the NRRP. Some projects are national, but then actually they have a local implementation, and this is something that does not happen, because this is something that I would like to say very clearly. Nobody listened to the regions. We told everybody that it was important to change the system and make regions, turn regions into better protagonists in the identification of the aims of the projects and their implementation. This is something which is very important, and yet what we manage is only a limited part. The other topic, and this is something which is very clear for regions, and that should also be the subject of further reflections. I mean, regions represent individual territories, but the regions together make up for the whole country. Some regions in various areas of the country represent more general interests, which in turn contribute to the national interests, and in turn, ultimately, to the European one. So, for example, I represent a small region in central Italy. I'm doing this together with President Acquaroli, because together with him we are also working in favor of our regions to be seen as representative of the central area of Italy. Another topic which is very important, which which is one of the objectives of the NRRP, is that of reaching the so-called territorial rebalancing. So we have to achieve the so-called territorial rebalancing between the north and the south. I believe this is wrong. We should aim at achieving the territorial balance concerning the whole of Italy. If we always bypass a part of Italy, which is that of the Apennines, so the center of Italy, we will have not achieved our results, and this country will always have a two-tier activity. We should not think about strengthening infrastructures in the north or connections to the south, and then we forget about the fact that there are the Apennines in the center. The Apennines have problems linked to the earthquake, so the earthquake of 2016, or the Cathedral of San Benedetto da Norcia, which finally was rebuilt. Actually, I'm talking about Norcia and San Benedetto because San Benedetto is also the patron saint of Europe. So central Italy is fundamental. So thinking about infrastructures, economic development, our research centers, our universities. I mean, we're currently working in central Italy to try and network universities to bring forward the projects of the NRRP and to assess the characteristics of the territory. And there can be good results to achieve. So there are lots of topics that we can deal with. And I would like everybody to actually pay attention to the NRRP. Sometimes this is addressed in a very superficial manner. There are problems, they have to be addressed seriously. But some solutions could have been made before and they haven't been considered. Thank you.
Now, considering the time that's been allotted to our meeting, well, what about the relationship with the central state? Because it is clear that the NRRP has been structured in a very centralized way. but the implementation then is in the hands of local institutions and regions. So what's the situation right now? Well, it's not really a challenge. The NRRP is the classic example of the way things should not be done, because regions have been ignored. And how can you ignore those who really have the knowledge of what is needed? And we see the results now right away now. We are modifying a slight percentage, 8% of the plan, so nothing will change really. And what will the result be? Because it's not a question of saying, I'm better than you. No. Will we be able of achieving our aims or not? Because if we create plans that will not lead to the objectives that you set, then it doesn't work. And with the rules that have been defined, I don't think we will be able to do it. So considering the resources that Europe has put at our disposals, Italy really will benefit from them. We should involve all parts, all interested parties. So it's not a question of competition between North and South. I agree, because in a team there are many players, and all players play inside the same team with different roles, different responsibilities, but for the same team. And the same should apply to Italy as a system, as a country. Otherwise, we will miss opportunities. In the next few years, we will have to face great challenges. Some really huge changes have already started, and just think of the repositioning of the great superpowers is going on right now. So new powers will emerge. So let's try and consider a globe or a map. And let's have a look at the size of Italy, for example. Let's have a look at the size of Europe. We are small. So I may sound very critical, but I think it's important to be very clear. We cannot simply tell fairy tales. If we want to remain so weak, then we can leave things as they are. So you have Europe punishing the member states, checking their accounts, their financial system, deciding where we should sell oranges, or whether you can dig or not in a certain area. But with these kind of rules, we won't go anywhere. Europe, as it is right now, is not really useful. So I think we have to be brave enough. And of course, it's not an easy task, but we have to try. We have to try and create the United States of Europe with a real president, with a real government, where a government that doesn't simply legislate on where to sell oranges, but also about foreign policies, a joint foreign policy. Maybe I'm talking about different issues right now, but the war in Ukraine, we all behave differently, say different things, and that doesn't work, because we will end up being excluded by the strategic global choices that the member states will take. So we need to be brave. this will have an impact on regions. The more your chain is short, the easier it is to act and change. If your chain is too long, Europe, state, region, local institutions, it's too long. It takes too long. So, of course, committees are important, but it would be really important to be able to talk to Europe. So the regions should be able to talk to Europe. So we heard about the challenges in our relationship with Europe. Sometimes it tends to suffocate resources. But is the European system still an opportunity for us? What can you tell us, considering your knowledge of the areas? So what kind of message can we send, a positive one, when it comes to the reform of the European system? Well, I think there are many opportunities and many advantages that Europe is giving us. Just think of the NRRP resources, the ones that have already arrived and the ones that we will get, and that play a strategic role in order to guarantee investments that had not been done before. So we need them, and this is a very positive thing. I agree with the idea that Europe should play a different role, a political role, that it doesn't always play. Yesterday, the message from Cardinal Zuppi, I think, is going in that direction. A very significant message. Hope for peace with a war that nobody wanted and that is continuously claiming lives. And we're all paying the consequences of this war. So his message was very significant. But Europe needs to review and modify its attitude. As you were saying before. So I believe this is a starting point for at least say things about, for example, environmental issues. Considering that next year we will have the European elections, considering what happened in the last few years, the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, a significant economic crisis that we are still facing, with inflation that is causing us a lot of trouble. So I think we should all try and give our own contribution. Talking about large carnivores, for example, it's not possible that without a change of the 92 directive saying that those animals are at risk of extinction, without modifying that directive and that convention, we cannot do anything, because things have changed. And the problem now is not just a problem for Trentino, for northern Italy. It's a problem that we all face. So we hope this problem will be part of our programs. Otherwise, there will be a further depopulation of the mountains areas. In the Trentino region, people are concerned because a person died, Andrea Papi, and many people spoke out loud saying that this person was not really a person, it was just a runner. And so I think the life of a person is more important than the life of an animal, isn't it? So we need to have Europe reflect on this. And for example, for energy benefits, we have energy produced by renewable sources, and so we need to apply for financing. Mario Draghi had to legislate in order to obtain the resources that we needed. But other countries have already renewed these resources for decades, and this doesn't happen here. I think it's important to consider it. So talking about Europe with a European class that has a direct contact with the needs, the ideas and the questions of people allows us to have a more realistic point of view. Our meeting is in favor of Europe, but of a dream that has to be realistic and has to be implemented in the right conditions. Europe as a superstate is not the future. The future is for a subject that can promote dialogue. So now I would like to ask you a very brief comment, because we are running a bit late. This year's meeting has a very clear title. Human existence is in an inexhaustible friendship. And Papa Francesco's message and Cardinal Zuppi's message talked about this. Friendship as a kind of social friendship, as a kind of cooperation. So my question to you is, what do you think about this title on focusing on friendship? Because our model, our social model, tends to be very highly competitive. So all subjects has to compete in a kind of war. Is there another possibility? Because you've already spoken about this, the model, a new model, a cooperative model. So loyal collaboration, cooperation. What is your point of view? What is the role of social friendship, civil society, and the principle of subsidiarity? This idea of not replacing citizens or social groups. So what do you think will be the future of this idea of the meeting about social friendship? Yes, I will be very quick. I think this is a very hot topic. This is a goal that we have to achieve. And I've already talked about this. We've experienced this in our relationship between regions. What does diversity mean? Because those who have governmental responsibilities, those who have a very direct contact with their communities, they know that even before their own personal interests and their party interests, they need to try and create a dialogue that can sometimes see some differences, because we don't have to agree on everything. We have to face some situations where contrasts were very high. But finding a synthesis at the end is essential. This diversity sometimes goes unnoticed because we don't have the opportunity of talking. Today we were able to talk to this audience, before this audience, but we should continue to do this. This is an extraordinary window and opportunity to be heard. But these kind of topics need to be the center of analysis. And if we are able to communicate on these topics, we will avoid many misunderstandings. We need to communicate, but we need to understand what the real problems are before speaking. I would like to conclude by saying that if you are able to communicate to your community and make the people understand that even though there are difficulties, because just think about COVID, a 5-year term, that is the term of a regional president, is limited to 2.5 years, because for 2.5 years we only managed COVID. We worked to save our communities 24/7. And President Mattarella already talked about this. He thanked us, saying that if we hadn't had regions, this country would not have been able to do everything that was done to save people, to face something that was unimaginable and unknown. And so I'm very open about this. I would stay awake at night to phone hospitals to ask them if they had beds available for people. So the healthcare system that has been so active is now under pressure. There is a need for significant action. I know the minister will be coming. And so as regions, we are trying to make the government understand that the healthcare system has to be a public one, has to guarantee everyone the services that we find it very difficult to guarantee right now because of all these problems I mentioned. So friendship between people, between communities, this is essential. It is the only way to get together and solve complex problems, because the problems we are facing today and we will face in the future are extremely complex problems. Thank you. Mr. Bini? Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for this great opportunity. This meeting is a clear example of the meaning of friendship, subsidiarity, and solidarity. We've seen all these pavilions. We've seen the organizations, the smile of people, the great manners that they displayed. 3,000 young people as volunteers. It's incredible. This is an example. We don't need to say very much. This is a clear example of friendship and subsidiarity. We were lucky enough, many of us were lucky enough to learn from Don Giussani, and Don Giussani would teach us this, that we should talk more about us and less about me. Right now, the me is everywhere. Selfishness is everywhere. Technology helped us. A lot of meetings, we would look at each other through a screen without touching each other, without smelling each other. So opportunities like this meeting, and long live the meeting. Well, I agree in saying that institutions need friendship, and autonomy requires being close. I was very happy when I arrived here to learn that there were 3,000 volunteers here. This is a very positive thing. In my province, in Trento, the world of volunteer organizations is a very important resource. Young people are highly motivated. People join the fire brigade. Other people join the Red Cross. organizations. And these things make a difference, especially when things get hard, when there's a need to act and help those in need. We did it in Friuli Venezia Giulia recently, in Slovenia, months back with Emilia Romagna and the flooding. These are things that are in the hearts of people who every day represent friendship as a way of growing and of having society grow, or a region or a community grow. These are the nice things that we have to be proud of. And this meeting, I think, confirms this. So also from my part, thank you very much for inviting me here, for allowing me to speak on behalf of the Autonomous Province of Trento, so that common citizens can work day after day and encourage those who have political responsibility to change something for common interest of regions, autonomous provinces, and the state. Thank you. I would like to thank all the speakers. As it often happens in this meeting, we heard people in charge of the public services being highly responsible. We heard them talk about the state and Europe, sometimes in a critical way. And I take the opportunity to join Mr. Mattarella, President Mattarella, in his thanks for what regions and autonomous provinces did in the last few years with the COVID pandemic and the service of the healthcare system that allowed us to do everything that we've been able to do. And I would like to conclude by saying that, and this is also what I see in my experience here in this meeting, the regional and local authorities are highly more collaborative and highly more aware of the need to work together. The national political class is far more leaning towards fighting rather than cooperation. So thank you very much to Councillor Rimini, Councillor Fumagati, and Councillor Tesei. Thank you.
Civiltà dell'amore, fratelli e sorelle, costruite senza stancarvi mai questa civiltà. Lavorate per questo, pregate per questo, soffrite per questo.
Il senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale, non è un'idea. Il Innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire, non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli.
Dieci racconti di solidarietà e aiuto concreto. Storie ricche d'amore, riscatto, coraggio e cura. Storie di persone che donano e che ispirano a costruire una società inclusiva. Una mano a chi sostiene. Storie.
Il senso religioso o l'esperienza religiosa è innanzitutto un fatto, un fenomeno obiettivo, un fatto reale, non è un'idea, innanzitutto non è un modo di sentire, non solo si tratta di un fatto, di un avvenimento, ma del fatto più imponente e più inestirpabile della storia dell'uomo. Più imponente, più vasto, che neanche il fenomeno dell'amore dell'uomo e della donna, che neanche il fenomeno del rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perché il senso religioso è un avvenimento che pone, che afferma o che ricerca l'orizzonte entro il quale acquisti senso anche il rapporto tra l'uomo e la donna, anche il rapporto tra genitori e figli. Perciò è più vasto, perfino di quelli
Dieci racconti di solidarietà e aiuto concreto. Storie ricche d'amore, riscatto, coraggio e cura. Storie di persone che donano e che ispirano a costruire una società inclusiva. Una mano a chi sostiene. Storie.